Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and today we're going to clarify again the information about the Jeju Air Boeing 737 crash. Well, in the last two videos I've discussed mostly technical probabilities and today we're going to speak mostly about the human factor and what pilots could do in this case even if hydraulic system was operational. So yeah, we're going to speculate just a little because I think about this air crash almost all the time because I've flown this particular airplane. For me, every mystery like that, every aviation accident, it's like detective and I want to find out what happened. Yeah, obviously investigation team will uncover details, they'll come to conclusion, but at this stage we might have some of the clues. But right before it, let's go to the Aviation Herald website, which has some of the updates. So this is the most recent information. We even have the communication between air traffic control and pilot, or pilots. It's better to say there were two pilots in the cockpit. So Muan airport traffic control clears the aircraft to land on runway 01. Yes, we still don't have the track of the airplane to process the raw ADS-B data. Well, it takes some of the time, so stand by. Maybe tomorrow we're gonna have this information. So somewhere on the final approach, airplane receives the clearance for landing. Just 3 minutes later, air traffic control broadcasts that caution, bird activity. It's the advisory information. It is normal to have it not just in Muan airport, but in the places where the bird activity is the usual thing. And just 2 minutes later, pilots report about the bird strike, so they called even Mayday, 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 bird strike, go round. So they declared the emergency Mayday. It means emergency, and they performed the missed approach maneuver. If Mayday is declared, something serious happened, not just the bird strike, but it was probably, as we saw in the video, the engine ingested the bird or bird hit the engine. And for sure they saw the unstable engine parameters because of the compressor stall. So it was caused in this case by the bird strike, and we have the information about it right from the crew. Probably they even saw the birds coming. The question is why they've decided to perform the missed approach maneuver, because according to FCTM I showed you yesterday, you may actually continue the approach if you are on final and stabilized, even if you lose one of the engines. But after all, it's the crew responsibility, I cannot judge them. So as we thought before, the airplane performed the go-around maneuver and requests the permission to land on runway 19, so with opposite course. And if we go to the Google Maps, here you can see the wall which was hit by the airplane. Then the airplane skirted the runway during its landing on runway 19. So with this course you go for runway 19, but with that one, runway 01. So for runway 01, actually, even if you overfly it, there is no such a wall. I don't see it, just the fence as in that side as well. And there is construction area, pretty much flat terrain here. So even in the case of the runway excursion, here it's more safer. And the airplane wouldn't be devastated by the wall, but we saw what happened. So for me, it's the question why they've decided to commit the go-round, and the weather was good, everything was stabilized, and just on the final approach, they lost the engine because of the bird strike. I would say I would continue the approach, and Boeing permits that, as you know from the flight crew training manual. And also from the psychological perspective, you set yourself for approach for runway 01, and it takes a while for our human brain to realize and reconstruct the approach, firstly in our mind, how you can do it. I'm not even saying about preparing the flight management computer or MCP panel. No, they hadn't time for it. The air traffic control has no option. It obeys for the pilot in case of the emergency. It provides the assistance. So if pilot requests runway 19, it means pilot knows what is safe for him because he is in the sky and he knows the capabilities of the airplane, procedures, and so on. So air traffic control here does what they should do. And at 0902 local time, aircraft touched down the runway, or flying 1,200 meters of 2,800 meters of the runway. And you don't need the calculator for that the remaining runway was 1,600 meters, which equals 1 statute mile. And obviously it's not enough for Boeing 737 without landing gear and flaps. Why they've touched down that far, miscalculation probably, and also the ground effect. So here you see that they've declared go around at 0859 and they've landed at 0902. Yesterday I've told about 5 minutes, but actually we're speaking just about 3 minutes. 3 minutes, it's really nothing. And for those 3 minutes they did go around and crash landed. They were in such a rush, it's just huge rush. So here we have the other relative information, but the most important I've told you. You may read it out over here, or I'll put the link for this source for you to check it out yourself. So the flight path was really short, something like that, right hand base or left hand base. It would be interesting to check out the real track of the airplane, but it's still not available. Hopefully, as I say to you, tomorrow. The South Korean sources published this kind of the information that indeed it was a very fast landing. And from the technical perspective, in those circumstances, especially for Boeing 737, the only option why you would rush for landing is the loss of thrust on both of the engines. Because even if you catch the bird in one of the engines, as we see on this video, you still may continue your flight normally with the help of the remaining engine. Go to the holding pattern, do all the checklists, and then land. So clearly there was something wrong also with the engine number 1. Was it out because of the bird, or was it shut down by mistake? I don't know. But on this video published yesterday, we see that one of the engines still was working, but the engine number 1, it seems like not, because we don't see the thermal trace or the blur coming from it. And this engine, which swallowed the bird and where it was the compressor stall, we don't know yet whether it was working properly or not, but it was working. And because it was working, I guess that after all the airplane had hydraulic system pressurized, because if the engine is running, it also powers a respective generator, it powers also the engine-driven hydraulic pump. But again, it's hard to say whether they had hydraulic system working or not at this stage. But it seems like that the other engine wasn't running, and it explains why there is no thrust reverser. So if I assume that one of the engines wasn't working properly because it was hit by the bird and the other engine was shut down for whatever reason, the only thing for crew was to land as fast as possible. But at the initial stage, if they decided to commence a go-round, they had at least one of the engines working. So they start their initial climb for go-round and then descent. And here's the most crucial point of approach, and yet we don't know what happened there. So again, it's my speculation here, don't take it very seriously. I think that they start go-round. Maybe by mistake or again by the bird strike, the other engine went off and they've decided just to glide to the runway, and you need actually clean configuration and no landing gear to provide the best gliding performance. Like here we have the airplane Boeing 737, we call it the clean configuration of the airplane, then the flaps are up and the landing gear up as well. But if you extend the landing gear and flaps, you'll add extra drag. Well, actually kind of the substantial drag for Boeing 737. For this airplane, if you select gear down, flaps 40, if you put the idle thrust, you'll go like this with a high vertical speed. So for example, if we take some turn altitude, let's say 1000 feet here, and here's some turn distance like 2 miles, 4 miles, 6 miles. In the clean configuration, the airplane would go like that, but with gear and full flaps, it might go like this. And actually depends on your location relative to the runway now. You may also choose something in the middle by extending flaps to 15, for example. Then you actually don't have that huge drag from your flaps. But probably pilots chose this configuration for purpose, so the clean configuration, because they were not sure of whether they can reach the runway or not. You see, if they did the go around here, they start to retract the landing gear and flaps, and they were very close already and too high to land for straight in for runway 01, and again they would have to convert the airplane to full landing configuration for this runway, so it will be 100% overshoot of the runway. So what we say that they've decided to continue approach using this long pattern for runway 19er, and to cover all of that long distance they probably choose to fly without flaps and without landing gear to make sure that they can reach the runway from the other end. As a variant, they also could have made some of that circle here to land on runway 01. The weather actually was good, permitted for any sort of the approach like that. And actually maybe it's better to perform the left-hand circle for captain to monitor the landing spot all the time. Also, there is the question of who was flying the airplane, who was flying it from the very beginning of the flight, whether captain was pilot monitoring or pilot flying, and whether captain took control in the moment they've decided to go around. And usually change of the duties, pilot monitoring, pilot flying, may also play a great role. Our human mind needs some time to settle to the new environment, to the new duties. And if this picture is real, it means that they've done the right-hand base. And it also means that for captain it was difficult to see the runway. It was monitored by the first officer. First officer is sitting on the right, so he saw everything, but captain, who I assume was pilot flying, didn't see the runway properly. So they were flying in a clean configuration towards the runway 19er, and only on the final approach captain saw that they are a little higher. And unfortunately there was no time for them to react properly or even to extend the landing gear. Why didn't they extend the gear at least here? I think they just forgot in the rush, and it's not that easy to do on Boeing 737 if you have some of the hydraulic problems. But again, there is the chance that there was the hydraulic. So yeah, it could be just a huge rush and lots of the mistakes accumulated on the way. So yeah, yesterday we discussed the possible technical problem, and today more about the human factor which might contribute this aviation accident. And guys, you know, even though I used to fly this particular airplane, but here I am on YouTube, just a random guy with microphone, so I highly recommend you to wait for the official reports coming from the investigation team to make the final conclusion. Here I just make my own conclusions based on my pilot experience and the information coming from the place. So do not take my words as something really robust. In this case, we're just discussing some of the versions, that's it. But also there are some of the facts which I should inform you about. For example, South Korean's Ministry of Transport reported that they've recovered the flight data recorder. However, it has been damaged. Well, actually, I was sure that everything is okay with that flight data recorder because some of the people even survived at the aft part of the airplane and the black boxes located at the same place in the airplane tail, but here I was actually wrong. So yeah, as you see, we have the different information, and I hope that this damaged flight data recorder is possible to decode. I think they will do it. They will do it, and they'll publish that data in their initial report about the case, which they usually publish in around 1 or 2 months after the crash happens. And unfortunately, aviation accidents still happen around the world, and our duty, like the duty of the aviation community, ICAO, and the safety organizations, is to learn on mistakes and introduce new regulations. It's the non-stop practice, and it exists there for decades, so now aviation is actually much safer compared to what it was, for example, in 70s. And I just hope that in the future we'll have less and less of those aviation accidents. It's a very, very tragic case happened in South Korea. Now I'm frustrated because I see even now that it could have been avoided. Guys, it's already the third video I recorded about this particular air crash, and without the major update, for example, traffic pattern or some crucial information, I'm not gonna to record it again. So probably there will be the break in the channel discussing this Jeju air crash. As usual guys, peaceful sky to you. See you.